All right, welcome back. Michelle Obama has a podcast, and she's been, it just seems like a very unhappy person.
Lately.
And I don't know what
It's
it
coming
is.
out.
And maybe what it tells us is just because you're rich and you live a life of luxury, there are things that are happening that the most important thing you can have maybe is a happy marriage more than anything else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we're finding out about this. Let's just run down this relatively quickly. She's been talking about how difficult her life has been. Now, according to this article, she went after her husband in sort of a cruel way on her podcast when he shared with her brother, who was on the show, Craig Robinson, saying that she would not want a child that turned out like him. I mean, can you give a worse insult to your spouse than to say you don't want your child, especially? She said it's fortunate that they didn't have a son because she would have been like Barack Obama.
Wow.
Well, that is... I don't know. They had two daughters.
That's a tough one.
She's glad she didn't have a son, quoting, "You would have been a Barack Obama. I'm so glad I didn't have a boy because he would have been a Barack Obama. No, wow. I would have felt for him," during an episode on her podcast. I don't even know how anybody even thinks of saying something like that, even if you felt that way.
Yeah, when I was a kid, sometimes I heard my mom say,
"You're just like your father," and go public with it.
Yeah.
It's another thing to go and say, gosh, don't ever do what your father did there. Okay, all right, don't be careful with your, don't do what your mom did. She made it, be better than that.
Yeah.
I always tell my kids, I always tell my sons, I says, don't be like me. Do not be like me. Be better than me. Be better than me. Take the good that I have, find the good parts of me, take that part of me, and then disregard the bad parts.
Yeah.
And be a good person. But Michelle Obama didn't do that. I mean,
No.
She went public with this. That's what I can't believe.
Well, part of the thing is that it's been almost a year now of her making some comments.
Yeah.
About how difficult it was to make food in the White House.
Yeah, she had to pay for her food in the White House.
Yeah, she had to pay for food. Oh no, the horrors.
Isn't that amazing?
The struggle.
Yeah, and then she's got mansions all over the place. And another thing is, she said something to the effect that, well, if we didn't go on Air Force One and we had to go on a different plane, we had to pay for the tickets for our kids to go with us.
No.
They had to pay, which I was surprised at both of those.
Well,
I actually learned something there when she said this, and I would have thought all the food was paid for.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I would have thought so too. And I would have thought, gosh, if you're going to take your kids on a trip somewhere, sure, I would have no problem with them. I was kind of surprised at that.
Yeah, and they have. I remember one time there was a controversy because there was something going on in Paris. Mm-hmm. And they ended up taking the whole family, like on Air Force One, and everybody's going, whoa, wait. Well, not everybody. Certain conservative groups were complaining. I don't get this, but I will tell you, if you look at some of the more objective websites and news stories and sources, they've kind of hinted to that there's been some trouble in the Obama family for quite a few years, and it's amazing when you're in the public eye as president, how everything seems great, and there's the White House Rose Garden pictures, and they're all standing together, and suddenly somebody's not president anymore, and you start to realize, okay, I'm not in the public limelight. But now she's going back into the limelight to complain about how bad things were. So there's something going on in the marriage, obviously. Obviously, not my opinion, my perspective, my view is that it's not a godly marriage, no matter what they claim their faith was. The proof is in the fruit.
I will say this, and I've said this about the Clinton marriage. They're still married.
They're still married.
They're still married. And if anybody out there thinks that marriage is 24/7 bliss, they are out of their minds. And I think I speak for every married person in the world. There are going to be struggles. And I don't know whether I agree here, but the former First Lady said this. Sometimes people who date don't realize that, in a long-term relationship, you're going to have deep, deep dips. I tell people, and folks think this is harsh, you're going to have a bad decade. You're going to have a bad decade in a marriage.
Okay, I might agree with that.
There might be. I'm not sure I disagree with that either.
Yeah.
But again, it's. I'm not sure a decade. You might have a couple bad years, but but you know what I mean. Who am I to say?
Life's a roller coaster.
Yeah, there sometimes, but it's the ones who persevere through it. and say, you know what, we're here because ultimately you need that other person. What I don't understand is why she would go public with this.
Preparing for the public divorce, the public breakup. She may be laying down some seed. Obviously, look, I mean, the whole thing is the biblical perspective is there's a right way to do marriage, a God way, and there's a wrong way. There's a world way, a flesh way. So what's held my wife and I together, and we had those dips, and we've had the tough times and some times where we thought, oh, are we going to make it? But what the glue that holds together, the third cord in that rope is the Lord. And that holds us together through thick and thin. We've been married now, we just finished 39 years. Next year is going to be our 40th year. And that's amazing.
And if those who don't know, you've gone through a very difficult time. Your wife is sick. She's wheelchair bound.
Yeah, wheelchair bound for 20 years.
Right. And then, of course, the fire, which destroyed several homes of your families.
Yeah. Last year, I'm told you have cancer.
Yeah, cancer last year, and that's going well.
Yes, that's going well.
But it's those are the times when the marriage should be strengthened.
Yes, that's the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, when you rely on the Lord, your marriage should survive those trials and tribulations.
It makes me wonder: did the Obamas not have a difficult time in their life? It seems like he was a state senator, became senator of Illinois. Suddenly he's the president. Everything it's not just going well, it's going very well. You're the leader of the free world. You're a rock star, hope and change. It doesn't appear as though they've had any real challenges of like, okay, you're unemployed, you've lost your job, you can't pay your mortgage,
somebody's
you
sick.
Have to move, somebody's sick and died, your kids are healthy, they're very intelligent people, they're going to college. Maybe some of the difficult times are what holds the marriage together.
That's because they focused on the material things and not the spiritual. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to keep throwing it back to that on occasion because that's the whole point, is that did they have a godly spiritual, are they trying, are they with the Lord? If not, I'm not saying, I know great Christian couples that unfortunately were divorced, and that's nothing that God approves of, unless there's a certain circumstance. Not to go down that road right now, but it just for what we're talking about now, they put this picture that everything was really wonderful in their marriage, and then suddenly he's not president anymore. We wait a few years, and now it was horrible.
Well, but we all do that. We all put it's like I always say. You go on Facebook, everybody's happy on Facebook, right? I see smiles, everybody's happy, but that's not how it is.
Look at my breakfast.
Yes, here's my food. We're going to have dinner tonight. Oh, I'm with my lovey-dovey. Oh,
we're in Paris. Look, selfie.
There's Eiffel Tower. Oh, look at that. And it's just, so all of that is phony. Not all of it, but a large portion of what we see, the public, which is what so shocks me. I'm not criticizing the Obamas in any way. I really mean that. They're married. They've been married for years. It seems like they've been, none of them been in trouble with the law as far as we know. They seem like they're decent enough people. But what I don't understand is why she decides to go public with this. Why not just say, is she trying to help us? Is she trying to make us feel better about our marriages? What is her motivation here? What is she trying to accomplish?
Okay, I'm not a psychologist.
Neither am I.
I'm not a psychologist, but I did take a year's class in college. That makes me dangerous. I would say it's very possible, because I am a counselor. I am a spiritual advisor.
Right.
And I've counseled many couples. I would say it's very possible she's laying down groundwork for a breakup.
Maybe.
Because otherwise it was just, 2 years ago, right? We wake up and the headline is Michelle and Barack Obama are getting a divorce. We'd be shocked. Now, if a month from now we hear, that they're going into divorce court, they're separating or something, now we're not so shocked. Now think about that. I think that's pretty wise.
It could be a time of her life. She says, I'm 60. This is the first time all of my decisions are for me.
Ooh.
Okay, I don't think that, there has been a point in my life, where at least after being married and having kids, that my choices were always somehow wrapped up in what they needed, and this is a period of freedom for me.
Wow.
Okay, so, and so
That's not a couple. That's
well,
claiming her independence.
Well, it could be that she's just going through a change in life in that sense, and that not I don't mean it in any other way. I just say that she's now 60 years old. She wants to do something different with her life. She's an empty nester now, and I think she doesn't know what to do with her life right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what it says. And I know it's no, I don't think either one of us are judging her or anyone else.
No.
The only thing I would probably judge is the necessity to go public with all of
Yeah,
this.
that's why I say it, for my amateur psychologist and
Yeah.
experience, I think she's laying some groundwork down. It's either that or pretty soon she's going to have to do something where she's going to have to answer questions from reporters. Wait, what are you doing? Why are you trashing Obama?
Okay, here's how this article put it. A lot of people would be satisfied with 2 grown daughters, a husband who became president, $70 million, and enough personal clout that people are actually interested in your podcast. She could do so much good with her voice. This article goes on to say in this writer's opinion that she's squandering her time with personal complaints about having to buy food in the White House and public commentary about not wanting a son who would turn out like her husband. It suggests that she is not well.
Psychologically,
I don't know if I want to go that far. I'm not,
Yeah.
but for me, it's not our place to judge. What I just don't understand is, keep things private. There's nothing wrong with keeping things private.
I would never trash my wife in public.
Oh gosh,
No.
no.
We don't have a perfect marriage, but it's pretty close.
Right. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Likewise with my marriage as well. Alfredo, thank you so much.
I love you, honey.
Yeah, me likewise.
Thank you.
That wraps up Rebel, Religion, and the News. Service time, 10 o'clock Sunday morning over at Rock of Life Fellowship with Pastor Alfredo Romero. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Rebel religion.